Good morning and happy Thursday to you. My apologies that earlier in this week when we attempted, I had a little difficulty because I was on my cell phone and it decided it wasn't going to cooperate with being in the sun. It overheated and that stopped our thing. So we're going to continue our talk today on masculinity, um, cultural and historical influences on masculinity and where we are. Good morning, Elder Paul.
Hey, how we doing? How's everybody doing out there today?
Well, I got something to tell you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So just a few years ago, um, my mother and father received a message that said, "It's a girl."
Uh-huh.
Not it, not she will decide later. It's a girl.
It's a girl. Okay.
And somehow, amazingly, I have lived up to that reputation.
You definitely are a girl. Yes, you are.
It's amazing how that happens, isn't it?
Amazing how that happens. Socialization, they tell me. Socialization.
Oh,
Not
is that
because you
what it
really...
was?
That's what they tell. That's what they say nowadays. It's because of socialization. Not because you really are a girl, but we brainwashed you into thinking you were a girl.
Oh, so
Society.
all of that anatomical stuff is just like they
Yeah.
got Barbie wrong or something, right?
They definitely got Ken wrong. They definitely got Ken wrong.
Well, sometimes in our culture it makes me wonder, but that's another story.
Another story.
That's actually let's start there.
We don't have to.
No, we can start there because I think Ken is a great example of the mindset that some have about gender and male and female.
Okay.
For those of y'all, I don't know where you've been and you don't know, but Ken is kind of like an anatomical mystery or something. Um, and I get that because you don't give little kids too much to go with,
Information. No.
but funny thing that they didn't have that problem with Barbie, but oh wait, hey, whatever. So, um, did we get cut off? Okay, sorry. It
There you go. What?
always freezes when we start. I think
It
they're trying to
always
tell us
does that.
something.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
trying to
they're
get us.
so so even with Barbie and Ken, there is a distinct difference. Um and somewhere in our culture um we're in a culture now that is kind of pushing androgyny, if you will.
Definitely pushing it.
Um and it doesn't work for me. I don't know about you, but that doesn't work for me.
Well, I think let's start talking about it from this standpoint here.
Okay,
There
go for it.
is there is a culture. There's a vain culture of, and I don't want to say culture of death, but there's definitely a culture of the non-essentiality of life. And what I mean by that is we are being told, or the world is trying to convince us that being alive or living is not an essential thing. You ain't got to live. You ain't got to be alive. And what I mean by that is we are devaluing life from the stages of birth to the stages of time to die. We're devaluing life. We are making it to where people don't want to reproduce. Our birth rates are ridiculously low. And I'm talking about all over the Western world, birth rates are ridiculously low. And and the things that we're involved in culturally are not conducive to reproduction. The other day I was talking to somebody. I want you to hear
But
this
they
right
want to
quick.
go find somebody else's kid though. Yeah.
Well, check this out right quick. I heard this the other day. If this statistic was applied to anything else, it would be called something different. Listen to this. They said that blacks are 3 times more likely to end up aborted than white children. Black children are 3 times more likely to end up aborted than black children. All right? Now, apply that to any other statistic and tell me what you would you call it. If they said black men were 3 times more likely to go to jail than white men, you would say it's racism. If it said that black men were 3 times more likely to get AIDS than white men, they would say it's racism. If they said black men were 3 times more, black folks are 3 times more likely to die of heart disease, they call it racism. When they say black babies are 3 times more likely to be aborted than white babies, they call it a choice. I don't get it. And what's going on here is our culture has so devalued life that it doesn't matter. And our weak as water black preachers are more interested in talking about stuff that doesn't matter than talking about things that really are a reflection of an oppressive society. How are you going to get up in your pulpit and tell me that there's a system that's trying to destroy me and kill me, and then invite politicians to your church that are perpetuating genocide in the birth canal?
Well, it's been such a moving train because it started when they first started pushing birth control. Where was the first place they went? To the black church.
To
Yeah,
the black community in general.
yeah, but
Exactly.
they use the church. They use
Right.
the church as because where else do you have a group of people sitting in one place where you can have everybody's attention? They went right into the church to tell them, "Oh, you can have a better life if you have less children. So let's help you have less children."
Right.
So
And
this is a moving train that has come to this point
right.
where genocide is on a whole other level.
Well,
Um,
here's the thing, but that has only worked with black people in Western societies. They try to take these same solutions. European countries try to take these same solutions, abortion included, and use them in Africa. I remember I saw this debate one time,
oh
and
yeah,
the sister told the white woman, "We don't want the Eurocentric solution of abortion in Africa. We don't want to kill our babies. Yes, we might have it hard in Africa. Yes, we may not have all of the advancement that you have, but we're not killing our babies."
well, they also value the family, the extended family, which is a very Afrocentric thing versus the European individuality. So um, it's been a different sale in the US because we have bought the more Western mindset of my four and no more. And that has changed how we see the larger family. Because if you look back in your own family, 2 generations, 3 generations ago, they were still having children. Like, why are we gonna have so many children? They were still reproducing, and a lot of that was they had the land, they were farming, there were a lot of that was different. So when people left the South and went to the North and they're living in apartments, you start seeing them have less, but not really a whole lot less because some of the people in the North
Yeah, I
were
don't.
still having a lot of children.
Yeah, so I don't want to blame this. So I don't want to blame this on the imposition of Western society on
Well, it's
Africans.
a
I mean, that's
mindset. It's a
yeah, but
mindset that I think that has progressed to this point.
now I will tell you that here's the problem with that. There were plenty of white folks in Western society having plenty of kids.
They
It
still
was not
are. What's the
right.
chick on TV got
It's
seven,
not.
8 kids?
Yeah, it's not Western society that's doing that, and there's plenty of extended families. There's a Catholic gentleman I know named Lou. Lou is 90 years old. His great great grandchildren come and visit him every
Mm-hmm.
year. That the family is very much intact. The problem is that the gender roles, the Western liberalization of gender roles, have caused the problem. We want to attribute it to Western society in general, but it's not Western society or individuality that is toxic. It is the severe upheaval of gender role
Well,
concepts that are
and
really
when
destroying families.
Yeah, and when I say that, I don't mean, maybe I need to clarify that. I don't mean Western society in general, but it is Western society that has basically sold this concept, if you will.
It's
Um,
nihilistic. It's nihilistic society. It's a nihilism. Again, it's not because I just want you to really, I want you to really kind of grasp this. There is there is a concept even in the West of an extended family. There's a concept even in the West of a intact nuclear family.
right.
It's when these things start getting broke down that we have a problem. They want the village to take over when they have decimated the nuclear family to the point to where you need outside help. I don't believe it takes a village to raise a child more so than I believe it takes a parent. And that parent might need help from time to time, but it takes more of a parent to raise a child than it does a village. Me and the village we don't share the same values. If the village believes that
Well, that's a
men
whole
can be
nother
women and women can be men,
yeah, but see,
we
that's
don't
a
share the same
whole,
values.
well, I still stick by the village, but I want to defend the village as now your community of faith. That may be the difference in the culture that we live in now, that there is much more significance and importance to staying connected to your community of faith, because whereas in years past you could really, anybody up and down your street may have had very similar values, but now, because we are dispersed, we live, amongst neighbors that come from all kinds of ideologies. I'm going to say that your community of faith is what becomes your village, if you will.
Okay, that's fine. I'll give you that. However you want to define the village, but even in the
Now,
community of
I will
faith.
say this. Now, let me take that to even to task. I see that even changing, because when I was coming up, I have, friends that we grew up together, but now we kind of live all over the country, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
always amazed at the pieces of what we were raised with that we all seem to have retained, and then the pieces that we all kind of start having a little bit of a different take on. And I can't say if that's geographic, I can't say if that's personal theology, but there are some core things that we all pretty much hone in on and say, yes, we still stand by these principles.
Well,
I
name
say
some of those core things. Name some of those core things.
that we all still stand by.
Yeah, you don't have to name all of them. Just two or three of them.
Um, the Bible is right.
Okay, they don't really stand by that. Go on, go on.
No, no, well, my people, now I can't speak for, broad, but most of the people that I came up with, but you have to remember who my core people are, though.
Uh huh.
Actually, my core people are pretty, we're pretty deep in the water, so we're not floating on the shallow end. Um, but some of those principles, traditional family, they're going to be extended family, the importance of male leadership in the family, in the
Mm-hmm.
community.
Okay.
There's a philanthropic piece, this, if you want to call it alms or charity, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Some component of community service, community interaction. Um, those are the pieces that affect how we live out what we believe, and how we also interact with others to share our faith component.
Mm-hmm.
So it there, I've got friends that, I mean, if I dropped my son off at their house today, I would trust that his the things that he was being exposed to and taught would be still very close. They may not be exact, but they would still be very close to what I attempt to maintain.
Okay. All right. All right.
So that's that village kind of thing that we once had. I mean, because, okay, I'll give you an example. When I was coming up, my dad didn't really let me out of his sight very much at all,
Right.
ever. But when we went to the national meetings, my dad would say, here's, he'd give me some dollar bills, and he would say, all right, I'm going back to the room. Remember the address, write it down if you need to, have a good time. I'll see you in the morning.
That's where
Because
he should have kept you in sight more often than that.
no,
Right
no, 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 no.
then.
Because remember, back then, think about it. Back then, there was still a semi trust that you were safe at the meeting because it was full of saints.
Right, 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 right.
And so he gave me the dollars so I could go from courtesy car to courtesy car. So I went from service to musical to service to choir rehearsal to musical to I went somewhere everywhere. That was like freedom time for me because that was the one time that my daddy said wherever she goes, there are gonna be some saints there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And in his mindset, that was sufficient because there was still enough trust amongst the saints that even though there might be somebody out of line, there's still enough saints there that nobody's going to harm my child.
Mm-hmm.
That was the context in which he understood allowing me that liberty because the Saints had taken over Memphis. Where was I going to go that there wasn't going to be Saints?
Right.
And so the courtesy cars were, my transportation. So that was like his relaxed time because, he knew I wasn't going nowhere but to the musical and the choir rehearsal or something and service. So
Right.
he knew I was going to come looking for him when it was time to eat because I wasn't going to spend my courtesy car money eating.
Right.
So he knew when I got hungry, I'd show back up.
Right. So well now let's
So
piggyback on
that's
this
the
thought.
village. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the
Well,
and
I,
and
and
in
I
that
understand that village.
in that is
That's
knowing that there would be men everywhere that I went, and
uh-huh.
that the mindset of a man is that protector component.
Okay, now we talking about now we where I want to go. We're
Do you
talking about
understand? Am I connecting the dots better
yeah, we're
now?
talking about gender roles. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to tell
because
you.
that
That's
is
what's
a
changed.
gender piece. Because the
Right.
church used to have men in the church.
That's right. And that's the thing. The gender roles have changed. They have drastically changed. You're gonna have gender roles changing when you have two generations of boys in a row, by and large, raised by women. And the thing that kills me is this. I don't understand why women can't connect the dots. Y'all so smart with everything else. Y'all can't even connect these dots.
Okay, it's not
If you
all of us.
if you complaining and saying, "Oh, these boys, these men ain't nothing. These men are terrible," and then someone says, "Well, who raised them?" And the response is, "Well, they daddy wasn't there." I get that. Okay, but who raised them? If these guys still are garbage, who raised them? Who made these terrible men? Who told these men you can't trust women? Who taught these men that you got to dog them out in order to get your way with them? Who taught these men this? What example did they see? Who was informing these boys to be these terrible guys?
So are
Someone
you
is.
saying it's the mother's example? I'm trying to figure out where you're going.
I'm going somewhere with it. Let's figure it out. Let's
Okay,
figure it out. Let's figure it
but
out together.
well, because I'm gonna tell you what
I
I'm
don't have a
trying to.
conclusion. I don't have a
Okay,
conclusion.
because
Let's get a conclusion.
I'm trying to stay with your thought process,
Uh huh.
but my reflex action,
Yes.
my reflex
Uh huh. Uh huh.
is, as a single mother,
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
can say that you know these men are not trying to um step up in some ways, and I get the component of
Okay.
that's not my child, I don't want to be a stepfather or
All
whatever,
right. All right.
but these
And Marva, the point is,
I'm trying to
here's the thing. The thing is, I give you that. These they might not be there, but they still got these guys still got to be raised, right? Who is
they
doing the
still have
raising?
to, but we're back to what I'm saying. If men in the community are not willing to be of some sort of example, impact, anything, because once upon a time men in the community did that. They
Right.
were
Okay.
interactive in the
Right.
community with other males in the community.
Right.
Now they be like, that's not my problem.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
want to say men have become selfish and
Right.
self-absorbed. As
Okay.
as as the old folks say, they belly gazing.
I agree, but here's the problem with that. The generation of men you talking about were raised by women. They have these feminine qualities. They have this vanity. They have this selfishness that is uniquely cute when a woman does it, but when a man does it, it equals bad things. I'm
Okay,
trying to get you to
unpack that
really,
because
I need you to connect
unpack
the
that
dot.
because see,
Okay,
if I say
let
it,
me unpack it
it
then.
sounds wrong, so I need you
All
to
right,
unpack that.
here's unpacking it. If the decision, if the issue is these men are not doing anything to help bring up the next generation of men, it's probably because they don't know what to do. If they don't know what
I'll
to
give
do,
them that.
it's probably because they didn't have any male influence. So the conclusion is the men are not there. Okay, you got it. These guys are trifling. I give it to you. High five, you won on that one. The problem is the job still has to be done. If you're in school and you have a group assignment, and the group assignment is to write a paper, and you have somebody in your group that doesn't want to participate in writing that paper, someone has to still write that paper. It still has to get done. The child still has to be raised. And the child can be raised successfully because we've seen examples of single women raising children successfully. But by the same token, we see more examples of them not doing a good job. And the point I'm making is if these men ain't no good, they got that way for a reason. And the answer ain't just because, well, ain't no man around.
So, are you saying that you feel like women discourage them from their manhood?
Oh, I haven't even got to that point yet. I'm just saying,
Let's go for it. I mean,
I'm saying that women can't raise men
because
for the
I
most
can
part.
see a lot of time. I agree with that. I
For
see
the
a
most
lot of
part,
times men that you leave it available and vocal and open for them to walk in the male man role, and
don't know what to do.
they bow out
Exactly.
gracefully.
They have no idea
Sometimes
what to
not
do.
gracefully,
That's right.
because I mean, and I guess in me, I want to think that there's something in them that knows what it should look like, but they may not know how to get from point A to point B.
Well, they don't. They don't. And what I'm saying to you is, whether
And
the
I think
woman,
sometimes it's a fear of failure. I think they fear failing at it.
that's fine. What I'm saying is, regardless of the cause, whether she kicked the daddy out the life or the daddy ran away because he was scared, the point is these boys are still raised by somebody. And if the problem you're saying as a woman is that these young men that I talk to nowadays, they don't respect women, or they don't care about women, or they don't this, that, and the third, the question I always ask is why is that? Who raised them to be that way? How can another woman raise a man child that don't respect women? Unless something about how she raised him is encouraging him not to respect women. Maybe she talks about maybe she spends her days and nights talking about how trifling these hoes are. Or as another woman talking about women. Or she says something negative about women all the time. The boy hears it. And maybe the mother, instead of uh, you know, teaching the boy to grow up, love him to death, literally, and not love him to life. And this trifling joker thinks that his job is to be taken care of by some woman for the rest of his life. Whatever is
Well,
going
and
on,
I think it has something to do a lot of times too with mama's priorities. Because if mama's priorities are the club every weekend, I mean, what message is she giving her son about, the type of woman he should be seeking and the type of environment he should want for himself
this
and for his family?
this is exactly, and this is exactly what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. So when I say, it's not an insult when I say to you, yo, if you want to know why the boys are jacked up, see who's raising them. That means something. Now, Marv, I will say that you are an exception to the rule, but here's the reason why you're an exception to that rule. You were raised by a man. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Your father raised you, but you still had your mother around. So you basically had the involvement of two parents for the most of your life. Even
Well,
if
and I
you,
had my grandparents too, so I had the
that's
extended
right.
family.
They had the
I
extended family.
I had to extend my aunts. my uncles. I had the extended family.
and you had men that were in proper gender roles. So when
Right.
you raise your son with an acknowledgement of gender roles, not mad at men, not feeling cheated by men, not feeling victimized by all men. So you don't have that stuff going in your stew when you're raising your boy. You're not putting that poison in them. You're not putting that mess in them. You're not putting your issues in them. By the same token, you're not dogging out girls in front of your son because you raised your daughter. So you are you are an exception to that rule. And I think you would say, you can notice by being in Atlanta, that single mothers in your same situation ain't nothing like you.
No, not at all.
Not at all, right? So
But
we just
now,
need to be honest
and
about
then
it.
let me double down on that and say, one of the things that I feel like happens with women and the way they interact is this sense of being unprotected.
Okay.
Um, because one of the things that I noticed just in talking with women, they may not say it, but it's kind of an undertone, if you will,
Hmm.
because I was raised protected. Like I never felt unprotected. As a
Right.
matter of fact, there are all these men around me, so nobody was gonna bother with me because they knew I had a pack.
Right. Right.
My posse didn't play, period. And
Right.
so I grew up feeling very protected, and I think what happens for women when they feel unprotected is that they are raised with a need to develop some kind of mechanism to keep themselves safe, and that is what builds into a lot of the mannerisms and the habits that they have in their life, because they at the undertow they know they want a man, but they can't navigate what kind of man. They can't navigate the expectations they should have of a man. And all of that has to do with that being unprotected.
Well, here's the question. The question becomes this: how can you have certain expectations of a man if the society that you are learning to exist in is telling you, "Hey, baby, you don't need a man. A woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle." When you get when
Is that
these
what
are
they're saying now? Who knew?
that's Gloria Steinem. That's from the '70s. That's old stuff. You should have heard that when you was back in school. Anyway,
Sir, I was not exposed to such.
the
I
the
was
point
taught how to fry chicken, okay?
right, the point I'm making, Mark, the point I'm making is we are in a situation to where the gender roles have been so terribly distorted that now we send our daughters out looking for men and we send our sons out looking for moms. That's the problem. That's the problem. And these women don't have the sense to know when they not raising a man, but they raising either their boyfriend or their next girlfriend. If I see another mother walk around here with some flaming, eccentrically feminine boy, I'm gonna scream. So sick
Well,
and
you might as well go
tired.
on and scream, because
I'm so sick and tired
you might as well
of
go on
these
and scream.
women raising boys to be chicks, and girls is killing me. You
Arching
silly.
their eyebrows. That I'm like, are you kidding me?
I'm so sick and tired of it.
Are you
And
kidding
then,
me?
nowadays, and I remember this. For a minute, I was assistant. I was a coach. I worked as an assistant coach for a college tennis team, uh, HBCU, and all the guys I had on my team, for the most part, didn't have a father. For
Mm.
the most part. So when I'm talking to them, I'm saying, hey man, I'm talking to them, like I'm talking to them the way that I was talked to, in terms of when I was being trained and stuff.
They can't handle it.
No, they can't handle. These guys are soft and sensitive.
They can't handle it.
No,
They
they can't handle it. And I'm
they
sitting here like,
they
what's
go cry.
wrong? Yeah, they go cry. Yeah, they go cry. And when they go cry, all that happens is that now we got to deal with this emotional child.
And nobody's playing tennis.
And nobody's playing tennis. Right, right. Right. I told,
See, when I come up, you done got hit with them balls. You gonna cry?
yeah, exactly.
You gonna cry? Catch a ball here.
I, told the guys one time. I said, look, fellas. I said, you out there by yourself. Ain't nobody gonna help you. You got to take every shot
And you,
yourself.
once upon a time, sports really kind of upped the ante
Right.
because sports. There was a time that I wouldn't date a man that didn't play sports.
You
Because
are 6'3", Marvin.
stop it. Well, that was only one piece of it. One piece of it
Okay.
was that was where the tall guys were. They had played sports.
Right.
But the other component of that is I saw sports build a confidence in them.
Uh-huh.
Um, Men who play sports, or women, anybody who plays sports, but we're talking about men right now. People
Right.
that play sports, men especially, learn how to vie for opportunity. They learn how to take that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
They learn how to readjust when the opportunity doesn't work out and
Mm-hmm.
anticipate the next opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that always, for me, set in motion a very successful mindset, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to know that you be prepared for the opportunity. You take the opportunity, even if the opportunity doesn't work, you be prepared for the next opportunity. That sense of continuation was something I always felt like was a positive in the men I wanted around me, because I always felt like if it doesn't work out, they'll figure it out. They'll make it happen. And I always liked that. Um, and I always felt like sports did that in a way that other things didn't do.
So
You know,
you felt that people who play sports had some of the natural gender role tendencies that you were attracted to, and you did not have to go and search to find out if they had them. They already had them. Interesting. Now, the problem is, these boys nowadays don't have those same gender role tendencies. You take a man like LeBron James, and you compare him to a guy like Michael Jordan, or the middle between the two, the bridge, Kobe Bryant. Michael Jordan is hyper masculine. Kobe Bryant is, you know, he's kind of tough. LeBron James is weak, but he's excellent. He has more gifts, physical gifts and talent, physical gifts than any of them. But he doesn't have the same mentality. There's a devolution going on. There's a devolution of manhood going on.
you saying he doesn't have the same mentality, or he doesn't have the
Have the
same go
same
get it, the
mentality.
same go get it.
Yeah, that's either way, same thing.
Okay.
I'm not differentiating between the two.
Okay.
He doesn't have the same mentality that those gentlemen have. And Kobe really didn't have the same mentality that Jordan had, but he had a lot of gifts. And it's like the more gifted that these guys get, the more, oh, the easier the thing happens for them, comes to them. But the strength that really makes a man, it seems to be seeping out of us. When you
Now,
think
do
about
you
this,
think that that has to do with us being way too indoors?
what I do know is that statistics show that my father's generation had more testosterone than my generation, and my generation has more testosterone than the generation that's after it. We are literally losing testosterone as we go on. We're devolving. We are devolving in the Western world. I don't know if this same thing exists in other places like Africa or the Middle East, but in the Western world, we are
It's
devolving.
very interesting because I will say this. African men seem to be very laid back and almost docile,
From
but
where?
from from like the West Coast.
Hmm.
But if situations come up, you will they will rise to the occasion. I mean,
Hmm.
they just have a very laid back kind of presentation,
Hmm.
but if they feel like there's a threat, they will rise up.
Well,
Um,
when you feel comfortable, like in Ghana, I guess you feel comfortable. You don't have the reason to rise up. But if you feel like you're going to be accosted, then you might be a little bit more hyperly masculine. There's something about the fight or flight that really kind of
yeah.
brings out the man in somebody.
Have you read? I don't know if you had a chance to read Dr. Goodman's book on good enough male mentoring.
I can't say I've read it though.
Okay. I think you can download it online. I've kind of
You got a
peeked at
link
it a
for it?
little bit.
You got a link for it?
Yeah, I'll see if I can find a link for it and add it.
Attach it to this right here.
Yeah, I I haven't looked at it because I took his class on um mentoring and counseling black men. So I figured
Right.
that it's probably some of the similar stuff that was in the class.
I wanted to take that class.
Um,
Instead, I took family systems and interdependency roles uh, when I
You
was
know what?
doing
It was
on the same
it
track.
was a very interesting class because there were more women in the class than men. And really it was very interesting to see how the women responded to what he was saying about why men respond the way they do, like why men walk away from their children because they don't want to deal with the issues of the mother,
Hmm.
and how the mother, challenges their being interactive in their child's life. And like it was really interesting to watch um how women had more struggle in understanding, those kinds of concepts. Like it's not that men don't want to be a part of their child's life. Like they couldn't get that because they were so stuck on, well, he's not there,
Mm-hmm.
versus, okay, he's not there in response to how he has to interact with you, and he doesn't want to do that in front of his child, nor
Mm.
does he want to do that, period.
Mm.
And it, it was, I mean, it was a semester of really talking about how men process behavior and interaction and how that affects the outcomes that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And the men in the class were really, um, it was very interesting to see how the men, they wanted to be in a male space because they felt like it was going to be a male class, but then there
Mm-hmm.
were, more women in the class than men. And so
Right.
it kind of shifted like the conversation into trying to really explain things
Mm-hmm.
that the men kind of all seemed to get amongst themselves. It was
Mm-hmm.
really interesting to watch the communication dynamic in that
Uh-huh.
class.
Mm-hmm.
And to see how men really want things to just be at ease.
Mm-hmm.
That somewhere along the way, I think, especially women of a brown hue, they want to create a sense of, I don't even know what you would call it, disturbing the system, if you will, to get a mechanism to happen, versus the fact that men just kind of really want to just progress and move along. Does that
Well,
make sense?
I think that, I mean, I don't know if men are, I don't think that's the thing more so than men don't like change, sudden change. Uh, but even in that particular standpoint, I would think that men are more comfortable with stable situations, and women are probably more comfortable with ubiquitous changes. That may have something
If
to
they
do
were,
with
if that's who they are.
if that's who they are. That's true.
Because, like, well, me and my daughter, for example, one of the things that she and I both get accused of is just being able to be okay. Because we were raised in stability. We
Right,
were
right,
raised,
right.
we weren't raised in this here and there and yon. We were raised in
Right.
stability.
Right.
So we kind of expect stability. Like if you're unstable, that's not gonna work.
Well, well,
This doesn't work.
here's my thing. My thing is when we sit around and we try to figure out for ourselves, you know, how our interaction with each other produces the results that we get, we are never very honest with ourselves about it. For example, men never say, I don't have the ability to tolerate the constant, nagging. I don't have the ability. I can't tolerate that. I can't deal with that. Instead of telling the truth about that, men will say, well, sometimes things happen, and I'm just not real. I just don't really want to kind of deal with certain things. Then the
Or
men will
they go
talk.
get milk and never come back.
Yeah, well, men men will talk around the subject with a woman in order to protect her feelings. Whereas this
Mm.
same man will talk to a man and be very, very, very direct.
Is it to protect her feelings or not to hear her go off the deep end?
Maybe both. Maybe to protect her feelings and protect his ears. It may be because there is a benefit, a side benefit, uh, of not putting a woman in a situation to where she has to be in combat with you, because it's kind of hard to get any loving from that woman if you guys are at odds because you decided today was the day you were going to vent all your concerns.
But see, I
So
I think
hold on,
I think that okay.
I'm going somewhere big with this one, Marvin. Hang on.
Okay.
So what happens is there is a there's a subtle benefit that men have for keeping peace with the women in their life. This is why
Mm.
oftentimes women who get involved in relationships with other women, they always end up with so much domestic violence. There is no incentive to keep the peace when you involve with another woman, because she ain't got nothing that you ain't already got. So, brother be like, if I argue with this woman, I might not get no kisses tonight. I mean, I have access to her tonight. Another woman be like, if I argue with my woman, well, it don't matter. I'll fight with her. I don't have any reason not to argue with her. And so that's why I've noticed that some of these domestic partnerships, these woman-on-woman partnerships, they're so violent. They're so like instantly filled with conflict. They fight so much.
But okay, so I need to go back to. I hear what you're saying,
I hope you
but I
do.
think
Every man knows
I
what I meant when I said that.
no, I know I get it. I get what
Okay,
you're
okay,
saying,
okay.
but I also think that that has to do with the personality of the person too. Um, and the reason why I say that, because if you have good communication in your relationship and you talk well and you communicate well in a way that doesn't always seem confrontational,
Mm-hmm.
the goal is to have a happy home. And in a happy home means that you should not, even if there are some things that you have to be light and ginger when you address them, the fact that you feel like you can't communicate well with the person that you're sharing the rest of your life with is problematic out the gate.
All right.
um so to that charge, I would say that a lot of times when you are selecting a companion or you are dealing with someone, those clues are there as to what their communication style is, how
Right.
well they handle crisis, how well they handle critique. You
Right.
know, if for example, um, you know, if you're fixing eggs and the man says, I don't like my eggs this way. Okay, well tell me how you want your eggs, because that can be changed, that can be improved, that can be done differently. But now if he just get up and throw the eggs in the trash, be like, I don't want that. Okay, then you're on a bad way of communicating. So I think it's all about how you learn to communicate in your, because if you have poor communication in your relationship, then what are y'all doing? It's
Hmm.
not it you have to you have to have something that makes what you share with each other different from what you share with anybody else in the world.
All right. Hence
And
why women don't do well together. Go ahead. There is no difference. There ain't no difference between what you got with her and what you got with every other woman in the world. Hallelujah. But anyway, that's a whole different story. But go ahead, finish,
you know
Marvin.
what? You just can't, can you? Can't you? Can't.
Just,
So I think that a lot of times the way we prioritize what we're looking for in companionship
yeah.
has everything to do with the perceptions we have about the gender roles.
All right.
And there definitely is a difference in how men communicate and how women communicate. But I think what they are supposed to do is nourish each other. And if that communication is in a certain way, so that those two individuals can communicate about it, then it should not create a chaos that is perpetual and all the time. That's not to say people won't get angry, people won't get upset, but how you handle that is very essential, because you're not talking about like for the next week, you're talking about forever, forever, ever, forever,
Forever,
ever.
ever. Right, right. And but the issue is, Marvin. I really think in my heart of hearts that when we start talking about the things that make men masculine and the way men are brought up nowadays, these two things ain't walking hand in hand. And there's a reason why they're not walking hand in hand. There's a reason why we're not raising a lot of masculine men nowadays. There's a reason why uh, in our small community, we have such a large portion of them that are uh, homosexual and things of that nature. You know, it's amazing to me. They say that homosexuals make up about 2% of the country, about 2% of the country. But the percentage of homosexuals in our community is much more than 2%.
I was going to say, where are they getting those numbers?
Those are government statistics.
Census records.
Yeah, well, good census records and estimates. Nobody always people don't always put their sexual preferences on these forms.
Well, that's my whole point. Yeah.
But but trust me, if it was as high as 10%, our societal numbers would be dwindling. I mean, our birth rate is already ridiculous as it is. It'd be 10 times worse. Can you imagine if 10% of your population was not producing, was unable to reproduce? Period. Just automatically by preference, we wouldn't have no babies.
By
So
preference.
by preference, you know what I'm saying? So
You know, that is the thing that I think, my daddy used to always say. He said, I never thought I would live to see a day that people would argue that a man should marry a woman.
right,
He
right,
said,
right.
I just never thought that would ever be a topic
Like
of
like
conversation.
how can how can this be how can this be a point counterpoint? Like how what? But nowadays,
But amazingly, they always want to raise children. That's the fascinating.
early
Um,
recruitment, early onset
that's
recruitment,
exactly
man.
what it is. It's a simulation. It's early preparation and a simulation.
I don't care what anybody
That's
says.
exactly what it is.
Uh, People, anybody. Here's the thing. I don't understand how people can tell you on one hand the type of people who believe this crap. They believe science. How do you believe science when the practical the practical application of a lifestyle is non-scientific? Your science says that the survival of the fittest is the rule of the world. It's the rule of science.
I mean, all you need is some Legos and y'all to be able to figure this out.
Right, 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 right. You can't survive if you ain't reproducing. So if there's a gene that naturally makes you unable to reproduce by preference, if that gene does exist, it's not conducive to society to science. It's scientifically not conducive to survival. So what would happen is that gene would be bred out. you would get rid of that gene, and only producers would, of course, remain, because that's how you propagate the species. That's why when folks tell me talking about I believe in science, first of all, science is not a faith walk. You don't believe in science.
Science is not a faith walk.
Or science is not a faith
That should
walk.
be a whole nother show. That's a whole
You
nother.
know, you don't believe the science. You don't believe. You believe in God. You don't believe science. Science is what it is. The earth. I'm standing on solid ground right now. How do I know it's solid? Because scientifically, I have gone through the scientific method to prove that it's solid. I stepped on it. I'm experiencing solid ground. Therefore, it is solid. It's not a faith walk. You're not hoping for things, and you're not producing evidence. For these cats, uh, science is a new type of faith. It literally is the substance of things hoped for. They hope there's a gene that makes somebody homosexual. Evidence of things not seen. They present evidence that ain't there to prove what ain't there. But anyway, Marvin, it's time to go. We've been here long
We
enough
ain't
today.
quoted the scripture.
We ain't talking about the script. We ain't talking about the Bible not one time today.
There is no scripture. There is no scripture text for this sermon today.
But you know what? You know what I wanted to talk about today so bad we didn't get to talk. I wanted to talk about. I was trying to get there, but I couldn't get there. I was trying to talk about these new abortion laws that they passed in the way you can kill a baby up to 9 months. I want to talk about that so bad, but
You know
we gonna get to
what?
that. We can't do it today. We gotta go. We gotta
Yeah,
go.
we gotta let that one ride. I'm.
Oh, we coming back to it though. We coming back to it. Listen, Marva. Listen. Look, I'll
You
give
know,
you.
if I had gotten married when I was younger, I'd have had a house full of children.
Oh, I
I
know
always,
you
wa-
would have.
I
I
always
know.
wanted a big family because I was
Yeah,
the
I
only
know.
child. I'm the
I
only
know.
child, so
I know you would have had a litter. You would
you
have had a
know
litter.
what? You know what? It's time for you to get off of
I,
that treadmill.
I would not have met you till you made supervisor. I would have met supervisor Marvin. 10 years from now, we're like Marvin, missionary Marvin. I see you around. How you doing? Oh, look at you. Are you with your grandbabies? Are these your grandbabies? Your great grandbabies? My God,
You
Lord
know
Jesus,
what? I,
supervisor.
yeah, that was what because see, all of my friends had a bunch of sisters and brothers, and I was like an only child. So being an only child is I think that's why I have a lot of the views about family that I have. Because if I don't marry into a family, it's just like me and my kids. Um, but I always, wanted when I was younger, I always wanted to have a lot of kids. Now I'm not having no children. If I have a child now, I'm gonna jump off the step.
I'm not Marvin. I'm not going. I'm not even going to comment on that. I have nothing. I have nothing to say about
Smart
that.
man, you are a smart man.
I just, I just think you just stay in the realm of reality. You won't have to worry about these things. Talk about
You,
having children and things. Lord help us today.
yeah, I'm not trying to at this point. I'll look. I'll babysit and I love on the babies and send them back home at this point. But
Uh,
I think I'm not trying to carry a car seat around right now.
well, no, you shouldn't be. Speaking of which, how's that boy of yours doing?
Oh, they have started spring practice, and so now I'm back into trying to figure out how to keep from dragging dirt all in my house.
Well, you know he's a boy. That's what they do.
No, but I mean, because I've got to find a place. I've got to find something for his cleats because they get full of dirt. And then I have beige interior in my car, so I need to go get some plastic or something. And then he wants to get all offended that I want him to sit on towels and plastic in my car. I'm like, dude, you've been
Time
out
out.
in the grass and the dirt.
Time out. Time out. Time out. Time out. I just want you to hear what you just said
Yeah.
as context to the argument I was making earlier about how men are just different. Just hear what you just said about having beige interior and all this on your carpet, and realize he don't give two cares about that.
He does not care at all. Ever.
It is
Ever.
not
It
his
is
not his
is
concern.
It is so not his concern. And he's
Not at
looking at
all.
me like,
What is your problem?
so? I mean, it ain't
Exactly.
even what's your problem, it's so. I'm like, son, you got ants on your clothes. Shake your clothes off. He's like, okay.
I got ants in my pants. What you talking about?
I mean, yeah, it's just not that. It's just he could care less. Literally, could
Yep.
care less.
That's kind of part of it. All right. Anyway, let's be done. Let's be done. It's good. Let's go home. Let's go, Marva. I've been on this treadmill long enough.
All right. Well,
I've lost five more pounds. Doing pretty good. I know
good job.
last year my goal was to lose 20 pounds, and I lost 15. Then I had a sinus condition, and the doctor put me on prednisone.
Okay.
So what happened was I took prednisone for a little bit, and I said, "Wait a second, I'm getting fat." So I just told the doc, I said, "Hey doc, I'm not taking the steroid stuff no more. I'm done with that. Done with that." He said, "Well, you have to take the steroid because of the medicine." I said, "Look, if the medicine is gonna kill me if I don't take the steroid, I'm just gonna have to die. I'm not taking this prednisone. It's not working. It's not that crucial, Mr. Hall. Well, if it's not that crucial, that's all I need to know. I'm not taking it."
Yeah. I had some similar issue. I was on some medication earlier, and I've done it, taken this medicine before, and I always gain about 25 pounds, 30 pounds every time I take it. So now I got to get back right because summer's coming and I'm going to the beach because I roll like that. So soon as I really want to go hiking, like I want to go hiking before all the animals have their babies. Because that's the worst time to go, in case anybody cares about hiking. You don't ever go in the spring, which is when everybody wants to jump out
I'm
there.
from the city.
Well, so let me just tell you, don't go hiking in the spring because that's when all of the creatures have their new babies, which means every creature is in high aggression mode because they're protecting their family. So that's really, it's all pretty and everything, but that's the worst time to go.
I will take your advice on that. And
So you're gonna stay on the cement and not have these problems.
so if I stay where I'm at, I won't even have that issue. Thank God. All
Yeah,
right.
so you know what? That's a prerequisite for me. I can't have somebody in my life that don't want to go nowhere and do nothing
Well,
because I like to go and do too much.
that's that. Well,
So
we gonna pray that the Lord sends you
testosterone.
a man that has. All right. May the Lord watch
Not scared of bees and
between
bugs
me
and
and thee while we absent
one from
one from
another.
another. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Have a
All
good one.
right. Take care, Mama. Bye.
Bye.